Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Eid Mubarak. Baganda banga abasiramu saba Allah aberenga okusiba kwaffe akukkiriza era tuwemu ekisinga obulungi. Abawalimu baffe abatusomeseza n'abatuweereza message y'olwaleero saba wekitiibwa Allah abawe ekisinga obulungi. Naye mu message zonna ze nakawuliriza ez'abawalimu ensi yonna nga yeekulumuludde genda okusala Eid. Abaseeka nga boogera ebigambo ebyenjawulo. Message esinza okumalamu amaanyi muze nakawulira ye message ya Mubajje. Kye Mubajje mu bizibu byonna bw'atunuulidde bye tulina gavumenti agiraajanidde eggalewo TikTok. Wakati nga tuli mu kaseera nga radio y'obusiraamu baagiggala okwali kutambuzibwa da'awa ebigambo ebirungi ebyo tabyogeddeeko oba teyabiraba oba teyabimanya Pale FM baagiggala naye bwazze bwayimiridde emimbali akubiriza government eggalewo TikTok.
The government of Uganda closed Facebook, but I think TikTok is worse than Facebook. I think TikTok is not being regulated. I for one, recently was in a country where TikTok is not existent. It's non-existent. Then I said, "Oh, this is good," because TikTok is for idlers, for content seekers, for those who have no sense to say.
Omanya abantu abatali basiraamu bamanyi tujeregerera nti abasiraamu lwaki amabaala mu Ramadhani tegakola. Ramadhani bwegwa amabaala ne gakola noga nti ne batandika okugamba nti abasiraamu mwe munywa omwenge. Kati bw'owuliriza ebigambo bya Seeka oyinza okulowooza nti be bana abasiraamu Ramadhani ng'ewedde abateekako bihudi ne yeesogga ekibala. Bw'owuliriza nnyo ebigambo bye.
The government of Uganda closed Facebook, but I think TikTok is worse than Facebook.
Ebyabyogera naye nga one day back polisi yakamala okupostinga ku Facebook ng'eyozayoza abasiraamu okutuuka ku Eid naye Seeka ye ayogera nga ali convinced nti gavumenti yagala Facebook. Seeka agiramu. Seeka tereera. Solution si ya kukubiriza gavumenti kugala TikTok. Kyekitufuula khaira umma. Ffe twajja kuno ku TikTok ng'abaana bali kuno banyeenya mabina. Nga banyeenya mabina ne tutandika okwogerera ku politics ne balyoka batudiisinga. Olwaleero abaana bali kuno boogera ebikwatagana ku ggwanga lyabwe. Bali inspired lwaki naffe abaalemerako ne bagamba muzeeyo eri politics wamwe ku Facebook. Kati Seeka bw'oba olaba nga waliwo ebikyamu ebikolebwa ku TikTok gulawo akawunti. Kyekitufuula khaira umma. Kuntum khaira umma ukhrijat linnas mwabe ekibiina kya Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam muri kibiina ekisukkulumu ukhrijat linnas mwavaayo eri abantu ta'muruna bil ma'ruf mulagire empisa ennungi wa tanhauna 'anil munkar muziize ebikyamu. Hey tuziize ebikyamu. Kati ekyo kye kitufuula khaira umma si kugeera ku makya mbulu okubola bye TikTok kuliko ebikolebwako gwe byotalaba byolabanga ebikyamu nti bagiggale. Gulawo akawunti jangu okola ebituufu okuta'amuruna bil ma'ruf oziize empisa embyezo zolaba ku TikTok. Bwe batyo bwe bakola. Seeka tereera. Seeka gwe ku TikTok bw'ogibikkula wakati Seeka era ne bwe mbuuzizza nti ogiramu agambye TikTok yaba aidola ba aidola gwokolako ki okolako ki. Nze kati atagula bamalaya ate ngonsanga mu bibanda bya bamalaya gwali bize ku TikTok okolako ki okutuuka okumanya nti TikTok ebeerako bya kisiru ebeerako ba aidola. Bannange nanyini TikTok yakola TikTok video ekuleetera ebyo ebintu byokka byoli interested in. Seeka lwaki gwe feed ye kuleetera bya busiru. Kankwate essimu yange wane y'okulala nawe era ng'oyagala otegeera empisa z'omuntu zennyini otegeera omuntu ye bw'ali yennyini nnyini. Kwata TikTok yo gibikula ogende ku for you ye feed ye byemuleetera yoyo omuntu ye karakita yoyo omuntu kuba feed ye kuleetera ebyo byoli interested in. Seeka lwaki gwe bakuleetera bya busiru. Nze kansooke mbikule feed yange.
Everything starts from there.
Feed yango ogiraba ekuleetera byoli interested in. Network eyagala kunkola ki? Network eyagala kunkola ebyo bya crypto. Baana b'obusiraamu baabo XRP bino bya crypto Seke yo feed yang Seke yo feed yang
We're gonna win so much. If you hold crypto, this message is for all right, so abasinga kuma mugenda kutandika okwebuuza
izo film video ekuletera ebyo byoli interested in Seka lwaki gwe feed ekuletera bya busiru goli interested mu bya busiru nzo olabyeko feed yange n'omulala abikule feed tesobola kukuletera ekyo kyotali interested in kati awo tuzaayo tutegeera lero omukulembeze ekyatukulembera abasiraamu ng'ojagala otegeera empisa z'omuntu n'embeera personality ye kwate essimu ye genda ku feed ye ekuletera byoli interested in tesobola kuletera birala era ebyango birabye ekuletera filimu bya politics crypto because my area of interest awo weeri baana boogera ku nkyukakyuka tolabye mu baamabina banyenyaki bakolaki tusobola osigala nga tuserengeta bibyo bya bujingo iyo dakisi vibes crypto baana babusiramu bemberako nga ndaba bahijabi Seka olaba biki mipiira sports Seka ku TikTok olabako bya busiru solution si kugala TikTok sekatereera mutulabisa mutuvumaganya nibatuuka okugamba nti amabaala webituuka mu Ramadhani nga amabaala gabatega kyakola gabagaggadde ekisibo bwe kiggwako Seka mwe mubeera mabaala biki byoyogera kuntum khayra umma fabe kibiina kya Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallama tuli kibiina ekyasukulumizibwa ukhrijat linnas twavaayo eri abantu ta'muruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhauna 'anil munkar kulagira mpisa nnungi na kuziyiza bikyamu gula wa account tandika okuziyiza ebikyamu solution si yakujjawo singa TikTok bwebanga kale eriko ebizibu byayo yakujijjawo buli ekizibu ekijja nti jawo bujja Seka tewandibadde mu dunia kanyale wo omumanyi byogenza okola tunze mali y'obusiramu nenanyini nsi yandigikujjeemu nagaona atigomya abasiramu be Uganda atunze mali y'obusiramu kamuje mu dunia nyini nsi najikufulumya singa buli kyali ekizibu nga bwe batyo bakisolovinga na kukikwata kukigajambula tewandibadde mu dunia muno nyumba ya Allah batuuka ne bagiteeka ku nyondo wansi w'obukulembeze bwo nanyini nsi yandigikufulumiza singa ebizibu bwe bityo bali bisolovingibwa lwaki tofuna ekyokuyiga okuva mu ebyo message kyeyo gyoyinza okudelivaringa mu basiramu ku bizibu bye tulina olwalero pale FM bwagigaddewo baana b'obusiramu bali mu makomera abantu babakoze ebintu abantu balina ebizibu abantu babamenyedde amayumba gaabwe ng'olwalero ze ekizibu kyoyogerako TikTok Seka tereera wekitibwa Allah kyakuwadde omukisa okutereeza tereera ndabi bakimbuyege abawalampa abawali mu baffe mbusimanyi Bobi Wine mumuleta mutya ku Idi najja natula mu line simanyi atudde mu line esooka yanonye ekikuko ku masijidi biki mukwano mu administration ya Katonda otula ku department ki eyo kuwa obuyinza mbwe abantu waliwo abantu abatalina kujja mu mizikiti oba olibu abazze mu muzikiti tayina kuba wano department kijotula keragira ebyo gobaga ebintu by'obusiramu byakuwuliranga bya feeling ebigambo by'obusiramu kiraman katibin bigambo biri mu buwandiiki genda mu suratul mumtahina bw'oba osobola okusoma aya ya 8 wekitibwa Allah tugamba nti la yanhaakumullahu 'anil ladhina lam yuqatilukum fid din wa lam yukhrijukum min diyarikum wekitibwa Allah tatugananga kukolagana naabo batali basiramu ebbanga lye bamala nga tebatulwanyisizza kutujja ku busiramu na kutugobaganya kutujja mu mayumba gaffe lwa dini yaffe tatugana nkokolagana nabo kati gojeri bugudi si musiramu lwaki ate ebbanga lyamala nga takulwanyisizza kukugobaganya lwa dini yo nakugobaganya mu bitundu bya mu mawanga gammwe mayumba gammwe lwa dini obusiramu tebutugana nkokolagana n'abantu abo gwani agoba omuntu mu nyumba ya Allah fa inal masajida lillah ezo masjidi nyumba za Allah gojembo sibanyogo ba mu omuntu gwengani gwengani ekibaleeta mu neno byabufuzi okakasa ekyamulese mu byabufuzi bw'obanga tosobola kusoma Quran genda osome mu byafaayo sahaba yajjako omusajja omutwe nga bali mu lutalo bava mu lutalo badda batandika okunyumya ku highlights ku byali mu lutalo agamba omusajja namutunuzaamu nti ekitala nga ngenda mujjako omutwe mwaba batakkiriza busiraamu nakkiriza naga nti nzikiriza Allah ne mujjako omutwe bigwa mubaka sallallahu alayhi wa sallam matu amugamba wakoze kyaki ekyo omusajja okumujjako omutwe nga yabadde akkiriza obusiraamu n'agamba ono yabadde akyogera lwakutya nti nabadde mugalulidde nga ngenda mujjako omutwe kwe kukyogera nti akkiriza Allah baka sallallahu alayhi wa sallam amubuuza wamuyuzizza ekifuba wamwabuluzza ekifuba n'okakasa nti yabadde abyogera lwakutya kumujjako omutwe nti yadde tabitegeeza kati gwagamba nti ekimuleetaawo byabufuzi wamuyuzizza ekifuba nola nti ekifuba kya Bobi Wine tekizze wano lwa busiraamu kizze wano lwa byabufuzi muve ku bantu ate mudde musoma obusiraamu bwobanga gw'obyogeranga musiraamu ddayo weetegereze temujja na irimu ya ku bubalaza eyo gye musobedde ku bubalaza mujje mutandika okugimunyisa wano la takafu ma laysa bihi ilmi tosamwasamwa na byotategeera busiraamu si bwe butyo bwe buli Islam tetuboola abantu banayingira batyo obusiraamu nga tububagobaganya kajjabeere wawuliriza ebigambo by'owekitibwa Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala osanga ebyo ebigambo byawulidde binaafuuka ensonga okukkiriza Allah temuwulirangako ng'erinnya lye Shuaibu lwaki yali yetuuma Islam bwaffe si bwakugobaganya bugobaganya fitina yebaluma abantu abasinga ate nga tewali kibalumya fitina ndala sheikiti yabalumya fitina mugina ku sheikiti munasobola eyo fitina egenda kubaluma paka mugenda kukwatibwa ensaalo mulabanga byalimu mulina okubibeera naye temujja kubibeera naye rumbaka yabatugamba mmwe hatuga nti kullu dhu ni'matu mahsuda buli kyengera kikwatibwa ensaalwa kati mulina ensaalo okuseeka kiti naye temulina kyakikolera muddeeyo ebintu mubinyikize mbitegeere bulungi.
Then we say we have got rule of law. We've got to address these issues, colleagues, for us to have the kind of country that we will cherish. Of course, is unchecked foreign deployments without parliamentary sanction. They deployed the UPDF in South Sudan and then came to parliament belatedly. And even the speaker, which I found problematic, the speaker said, no, we're not going to debate this issue because it's of huge diplomatic concern. So why are we there as parliament? Why? Because they say, no, this one passed it immediately and then adjourned the house and ran away. Why are we then present? So that shows you that there's something fishy about some of these engagements. Of course, there are other concerns, human rights violations, including extrajudicial killings and suppression of dissent, which further erode public trust. Additionally, this sector, defense, suffers from redundant funding, ghost soldiers on payrolls, and militarization of civilian roles, contradicting constitutional mandates for a non-partisan army. We strongly urge, one, we've got to improve welfare for UPDF personnel, including salaries, housing, and healthcare. We've got to enhance accountability for defense expenditures, particularly classified budgets. Then strengthen border security to prevent illegal arms trafficking, and improve training and equipment for national security forces. Let me talk about agriculture, which is a favorite for Madame Agnes Kirabo. She's very passionate about that, and rightly so. Government has not prioritized public spending on the agricultural sector, despite the AU Cap Malabo 2014 and the recent 2025 Kampala declarations for at least 10% allocation of the national budget to this sector. Budget allocation to the sector has stagnated at less than 3% of the national budget, with a component of more than 50% as external finance. The sectoral growth rate is at 3.8% out of the recommended 6%. About 40% of the agricultural processing factories countrywide are non-functional, but they tell us they are factories. With our tea and coffee factories operating capacity at only about 50%. So instead of bolstering that, they're now putting up new ones which are being given free taxpayers' money. Additionally, Farmers are still faced with the challenge of agricultural extension and advisory services. Access to agriculture, credit and finance is problematic, that's at about 12%. The high cost of agricultural inputs and the influx of counterfeits, that's at 30%. The cries in the fisheries subsector. Fishermen are always hounded, beaten, killed because of trying to eke out a living. Limited progress on access to water for agricultural production. Deteriorating prices of agricultural products on the world market, among others. Many Ugandans are malnourished. If you read reports from entities like Food Rights Alliance, many of our people are malnourished. And yet, Uganda has got nearly half of all the arable land in East Africa. That's land suitable for agriculture. Nearly half of all the arable land in East Africa is here in Uganda. But we have people starving. This is what we must do. One, adhere to the implementation of the National Agricultural Finance Policy to align it with the Malabo 2014 and Kampala CAP 2025 declarations, and commitment to align with NDP4 targets. We've got to revamp the National Seed Company, expedite the National Agricultural Extension Strategy, finalize the National Irrigation Master Plan, and then urgently operationalize the Fisheries and Aquaculture Act of 2022. There's the tourism sector. Tourism has got a lot of potential in this our country, but it is neglected. Limited funding happening there. The infrastructure leading to some of these game parks is in a sorry state. I remember there's a time some tourists got stuck on a road for a day and a half, and the then Minister of State for Tourism, said that that's part of the tourism experience for them to see what a third world country is like. So these guys were stuck for nearly 2 days trying to push their car because they took off time from their country for maybe 4 days to come and spend some dollars here in Uganda. But for 2 days they're stuck on the road. And the one Chiwanda Suri, who was the Minister of State for Tourism, then said that's part of the tourism experience. Those are Museveni's ministers. Let me talk about trade, industry and cooperative sector. Maybe I'll let you read that in the booklets we have availed to you. There's water and environment sector, which is also very critical. I'll encourage us to read so that I don't take too long here. Look at the proposals that we have there really. Strengthening enforcement of environmental protection laws, investing in reforestation and wetland restoration programs, improving access to clean water, particularly in rural areas. Many Ugandans today don't have access to clean water. Enhancing waste management infrastructure to reduce pollution. There's the energy sector. And we are saying we've got to expand rural electrification through off-grid solar and mini-grid solutions. Only about 30% of our country is connected to the national grid. 70% are in darkness. I know it's difficult for you here in Kampala to believe that 70% of our country is not connected to the national grid. These are things that we need to deal with. There's the water and transport sector. And I'll urge us to read that component too. Lands, housing and urban sector. Critical concerns there. Our shadow minister is always talking about them. Gender, labor and social development. Let me talk about internal affairs. The internal affairs sector in Uganda faces key challenges, including underfunding for security and law enforcement, inadequate police infrastructure, corruption, and human rights concerns. Other issues include slow service delivery, immigration and national identification processes, risking cyber and congestion in correctional facilities due to case backlog and limited rehabilitation programs. We've got to do this. One, increase funding for recruitment, training and equipping the police force to improve security and public trust. Many of you know that when you have a challenge and you call on police to come to your aid, they will struggle to come because you find there's one car for I don't know how many sub-counties. Then many times they don't have fuel, genuinely so. During the killings in Masaka, a committee of parliament went and interacted with, I think it was what's the station, one of those regional films. And this guy was honest with them and said, look, I've got one car for most of this place, and many times it does not have fuel. So people call us saying machete wielding men are here and we cannot move. And I remember a minister coming out to the Minister for Security, Honorable Jim Owezi. He came out to castigate this police officer, in fact wanted to sanction him. It was until the public said, but the man is speaking the truth. There's just one truck in that whole region area, that specific one where the committee was. Many times it doesn't have fuel. And he said, now, with my little salary, should I be the one fueling this car when people call? And he said, genuinely, people call for help. I want to help, but how do I help? And Muhwezi was saying he's making government look bad, as opposed to availing what is required. We've got to strengthen cyber security measures and digital forensic capabilities to combat online crime, which is increasing by the day. We've got to expand fire stations across the country to ensure a timely response to fire outbreaks, improve efficiency in passport issuance, border security, and national ID registration. Enhance rehabilitation programs in prisons to reduce recidivism and promote reintegration into society. Strengthen anti-corruption mechanisms within law enforcement agencies to eliminate bribery and misconduct. Promote community policing initiatives to foster better relations between law enforcement and citizens. Some of the community policing that happens today, you see one general dam leader going to talk bad about the opposition and to recruit people into NRM. That's not what policing, community policing should be. But the likes of General Damulira have interpreted it that way. You'll go to people, you come, we join this party, and work together. So to him, that's the brilliant idea of community policing. We've got to strengthen enforcement of disciplinary action against errant officers who violate the law in the conduct of their duties, especially those who brutalize the citizenry. Let me conclude this way. Our alternative budget priorities focus on investing in key sectors such as healthcare, education, agriculture, and infrastructure to drive inclusive development. Adequate funding for public hospitals, support for small-scale farmers, improvements in education, and investment in sustainable infrastructure are essential for building an economy that benefits all Ugandans. We advocate for a budget that centers on the people's needs, fostering a more just and prosperous Uganda. This kind of budget is achievable once you put people first and combat corruption, which is eating up the resources meant to deliver services to the citizenry. For as long as we keep losing over 10 trillion shillings a year, as per the IGG report, there is just no way, ladies and gentlemen, that we shall have resources to invest in these priority sectors. Those who steal taxpayers' money are promoted and pampered, as opposed to being locked up in jail and forced to return the stolen loot. We have all watched the debate regarding the Umeme concession that comes to an end today. Government entered into a bad deal with this company, like they normally do with many of these agreements they sign. Years ago, this deal was detrimental to the country, as they normally do with many other deals and agreements. Today, Umeme says government owes them $234 million US. Government told Parliament that it owes $190 million US. While the Auditor General says the figure is only $118 million. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what theft looks like. This, exactly. Then you have a figure, $234 million. Government is saying $190 million. Auditor General, who is part of government, is saying no, it is $118 million US. Somebody wants to rip off the taxpayer along the way. There's no way this country can develop with such confusion. Because even the Auditor General's figure of $118 million US, some of us are saying we want to scrutinize that. And that's what we told the presiding officer on that day. We said, you have told us you've received a report from the Auditor General saying the figure is $118 million US. and you're asking us to pass it as Parliament. What are we passing? I'm very sure even the presiding officer had not read that report. I am sure. They didn't know what the contents of that report were. And then you're saying, quickly, let's pass it so that we deal with this issue. Yes, we don't want the country to lose money, but what exactly are we passing? We protested, but our colleagues on the other side say, they have it. But are we sure of what the exact money is? Because even the Auditor General's reports, normally they are brought to Parliament, we scrutinize them. Because there can be gaps therein. Because now who should we believe? Somebody somewhere is not telling the true story regarding Umeme. And I can assure you we are going to dig up until we get to the bottom of the truth. So that taxpayers' money is not taken for a ride. I'd like to implore us all as a country to say no to these machinations and get our country in order. As the opposition, let's continue to keep the government in check, even as we work hard to send it off so that Ugandans can have a government that is accountable to them and prioritizes their well-being. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As I leave the stage, I just want to appreciate colleagues with whom we do this work. I know Honorable Helen talked about the shadow cabinet. I want to very much appreciate members of the shadow cabinet. Thank you. I normally harass you, and I'm using the word harass in bold and underline so that we get to do our work. So that we have these alternatives in place. So I'm normally gathering you, please have fun with this, with the technical team and so on. So I want to appreciate all of you for all the work that you do put in. And the technical staff. Those ones I harass a lot more. For you, your colleagues, sometimes I have to restrain myself. But I want to appreciate the technical team led by the director for all the hard work. We are going to work even harder. We have a small team, as you know. Because contracts ended, Parliament said there is no money to renew contracts of staff from the office of the leader of the opposition. I said, wow, but you're recruiting new people every day. Where did that money come from that cannot take care of these ones? That's the ridiculousness of politics. So, with a very small team, we work day and night to see to it that we produce this work, because it is important that Ugandans see this here is a credible government in waiting. So I want to appreciate you all. Our shadow finance minister should have been here. He's out of town on some engagements, but I do appreciate him and the rest of us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.